if they don't make it through re-entry, we failed.
Hi, my name is Amy Weldon, and you are watching Blue Collar White Coat Podcast. It's a very special day. It is episode 1 of season 2 and our first on location episode, which is very exciting. We are in a lobby of a really nice condo building, so you're going to probably hear a little bit of atmospheric interference today. Doors banging, footsteps. Apologize for that. But I'm really excited to be here with my special guest, Chad Cleary, who works at NASA. So I'm going to let him introduce himself and talk about NASA in a second. But again, thank you for being here. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on all of social. That's Blue Collar White Coat Pod, Instagram, Facebook, wherever. Also, go throw money at us on Patreon, because if you enjoy this setting, it costs money to create. So please support us on Patreon, and thank you to everyone who has supported us so far. So without further ado, Chad, welcome to Blue Collar White Coat Podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I know we've been trying to work for a long time to try to get this together, and it's finally happening. So I'm very happy to be here.
So you've been like one of the biggest supporters right off the bat, and it's because it's kind of like right on the nose for what you do.
Absolutely. And it's something that I fully and wholeheartedly support. You know, I think there's a lot of misconceptions or misunderstandings in the industry in terms of how folks with technical skills can get into an industry that is, at least from a public perception, is that they need an ABET accredited engineering degree or they need to be a scientist or an engineer. But the reality is that's not true. And there's a lot of wide varieties of skills that can get into a lot of industries. So definitely something I've been fully supporting from the beginning, and I'm glad we're finally making it happen.
I'm so excited. Yeah, this is going to be great. So NASA, people think of NASA as like, you know, or Orlando or the Space Coast, but there's NASA facilities all over, and we're here in the Bay Area. So can you tell us about like your facility and, you know, maybe in the context of even Artemis, like what are the kind of things that happen at NASA Ames, which is where you are, that may not happen at NASA Goddard or NASA, you know, can you give us any kind of, you know, background on it?
So NASA Ames is in Mountain View, California, and that's where I work, even though I live in Dublin. And I work specifically in the ArcJet complex. So I'll talk about the ArcJet complex and what we do, and then I'll try my best to do a light introduction of these other facilities. So for us, we're all about thermal protection systems, designing and testing thermal protection systems. So the ArcJet complex is, you know, when we're testing thermal protection systems, the cost of going to space and testing it on actual assets is extremely expensive. So we have to try our best to simulate that on ground on Earth, to give ourselves, you know, enough data, enough input to suggest that, hey, this is mostly safe, you know. But when you start to talk about NASA specifics, we have sister branches, you know, where we have material scientists that are designing everything, you know, folks that are kind of doing the assembly process, and folks that are doing the testing, which is what I'm a part of. And really what we're doing with thermal protection systems is we're taking these systems and we're testing them in an environment that is supposed to simulate an entry environment. Right. So it's in a test box, it's a plasma stream. You know, I mean, the only thing I can really think of is, you know, for somebody who doesn't know anything about an ArcJet, it's literally like a lightsaber.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. So it is a stream of plasma. And it's going through a box, and then we're going to use what we call a sting arm that's holding a model, and it's going to drop it into the stream, and then we'll test it for however many seconds or minutes, and then they'll pull it back.
And they're probably testing like it's almost there. Like it's 20% getting hit by the plasma to like it's 100% getting hit by the plasma.
So, well, actually, it's not even like a slow transition. It's fast. It's like we got to put it in there and we got to expose it to this extreme environment, which could be up to, you know, maybe 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit in the stream, or even hotter, a little bit more upstream. So And the reality of that plasma stream is most materials, most compounds are going to fail.
Yeah.
But how long is it going to take for that material to fail?
Sure.
Right? Will it last long enough to get
And
through
how
an
does it
entry
fail?
environment?
Like, is it
Yeah.
just blowing off, or is it degrading? My dad, my mom's stepdad worked for NASA Goddard on the heat shield that was the reason, I believe, and Mom, if you're listening, correct me. I believe he worked on correcting what had happened on Apollo 13, and he was on the shuttle team then. He transitioned over to the shuttle team. And there's a story where he got to go in for like, bring your parent to work day, whatever. And he brought a tile from that they were working
Yeah.
on, and he set it
Probably
on fire
peeking.
and like held it in front of the class. Can you
Yeah.
imagine? Like, you're done. You're done. If you're the kid going after my pop-pop, like
Yeah.
setting something on fire and having it glow like blue and not being burned,
Sure.
like
That's hard to
amazing.
beat.
So it's weird because I didn't unfortunately get to know him very well, but he didn't go to school or anything. He was an engineer he knew how stuff worked and how it didn't work. And he was a materials scientist probably before that was a thing. So it's so funny to like sit here with someone that actually works in a facility that he probably would have been involved with, or like at least really enjoyed touring.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, again, if we're going back to the original question, which is, what I do at NASA Ames and what happens at NASA Ames, that's what we do. We do thermal protection system testing. Our objective is to collect as much information as we can to approve the material for flight and say, hey, this is safe to whatever degree the data suggests. And so we allow our customers, which could be internal NASA, which most recently includes Artemis, or external customers, right? Which could include, SpaceX, Blue Origin, even DoD customers.
Okay, I feel like we jumped right into the meat and potatoes, and we haven't really talked about how the heck you got to work at NASA. Because you told me that you were in the Navy, and so my mind immediately went to, it was so cool to see the Navy divers go get Orion and the crew.
Yeah.
That was so neat. I would love to talk to them if you're watching. Hi, call me. But yeah, what did you do in the Navy? Like, what was the trajectory from?
Yeah, so, interestingly enough, when I was in high school, I wanted to be a pilot, but I wanted to be a pilot in the Air Force.
Sure.
And I found this, I had an interaction with a retired commander from the Navy, and she told me, are you aware that there's more planes in the Navy than the Air Force?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I didn't know
Kind of
that.
like there's more ships in the Army apparently than in the Navy.
Really? I didn't know
It's a
that.
claim to fame. Yeah. It's like a whole, like one of those Russian dolls. Like,
Yeah, seriously. So when she told me that, I was like, oh, okay, maybe I should explore the Navy. And then, this was very early on. It was like 8th, 9th grade. And, I got into a program with a high school for like honor roll students, good grades. And it's like, hey, you could do this private pilot program in the school, and we'll send you through the program. And by the end of it, you'll have your private pilot's license by the time you graduate.
wow.
And which was awesome, because that's not really typically offered in schools.
Not part of,
It's
like
just shop class or home ec.
Right, your regular like resume. No, yeah.
So, and it was in that course that I found out that I was colorblind.
Oh.
Yeah, so I could not be a pilot.
Dang.
And then I was like, okay, I'm going to, but I still, for full transparency, I didn't think that I was mature enough to take college seriously. Now that I didn't have a driven objective.
Yeah, I respect you. I should have been having that same conversation with myself at 18, but yes.
So I still wanted to go into the military because I realized that I knew without this objective to achieve, and I was kind of like, scrambled, I still needed the military to kind of direct me and help me mature. Sure. And so I was considering the spec war community, like the Navy diver, or even SWIC, which, if it's been so long since I've talked about it, like a surface warfare or special warfare
Yeah.
combatant craft crewman.
Right.
So like when SEALs need saving,
Right.
they send SWIC kind
Yeah.
of thing, you know.
Wow.
So, and then I found out again, like, hey, you're colorblind. You can't do any of that. And it was kind of messed up because I had a good ASVAB score, and they put all these jobs out in front of me, and they're like, hey, everything, you could do a lot of stuff. And then it was so messed up because the recruiter was like, but you're colorblind? And he just started taking them back. And I was like, oh my gosh.
No.
So, but the recruiter was a damage controlman, so kind of like a ship's firefighter.
Sure, yeah.
And he's like, so one of the only jobs you can do now is being a machinist mate. And he was honest. He's like, it's probably one of the most difficult jobs you can do.
Surely one
Navy,
of those technical.
depending on the ship you're on and kind of what duties you're assigned. And I was like, I was thinking, I need transferable skills, right? Should I not stay in the military and I get out, I want to make sure that I don't get out and then all of a sudden I don't have any transferable skills.
Right.
A real issue with a lot of veterans or transition service members. And so I became a machinist mate. A machinist mate is just, at least in my case, I worked on an amphibious assault ship, which is USS Boxer LHD-4. It's an amphibious assault ship, if you're not aware. It is a ship that is probably the most expensive taxi in the world. We carry Marines, right? Because Marines is a kind of a department of the Navy.
Sure.
A lot of people tend to forget that.
Yeah.
They don't like that. They definitely don't like that. But we taxi them to the area of operation where they need to perform their duties.
Having been raised by a family full of Marines, this is my contractual obligation to say, did you have like a lot of crayons and coloring sheets and, activities to keep the Marines busy with? iPads with games. No offense, Marines.
I will say, and like, just to be empathetic to the Marines, like when they're on board ship, I mean, there is nothing for them to do. So they got to do a lot of training, a lot of live fire exercises, shooting in the ocean, hoping that they hit a fish near the surface and see it pop up and float, which never happens. That's also a joke. So they get bored.
Sure.
And I totally understand.
You got to stay sharp, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But as a machinist mate, and another misconception of what it means to be a machinist mate is people think machining, like CNC machines and stuff like that.
Welding.
But actually, in the Navy, a machinist mate is somebody who works with machines, right? Like engines and boilers and auxiliary systems.
So more like a mechanic?
More like a mechanic.
Okay.
Right. But even then, a mechanic is going to be less operational and more maintenance.
Sure.
Right. So we operate and maintain our own systems.
Okay.
And on the USS Boxer, it's one of those kind of interim propulsion systems is what I would call it. It's the transition between coal-driven boilers to gas turbine ships, right? So push button, gas turbine, super easy. It starts up, right? It'll be less complex operationally, but more complex from a maintenance perspective. And then our ship was both complex in maintenance and operations because
the amphibious aspect.
To light off the ship, you have an old traditional boiler, you got to light a torch, you got to shake it, you got to throw it into the boiler, you got to add fuel, you got to add air, you got to say fires are lit, and then it's just this huge process, and all of a sudden fires are lit, and you start progressing to
chugging forward,
underway. So I work down in what we call the pit.
Sounds
the
cozy.
boiler room. It is cozy. It's so cozy that we might see temperatures of like 130 degrees Fahrenheit in an environment that we have to work. And I will say this. When we're on deployment, especially in the Middle East, when Marines would get in trouble on the ship, they would have to do extra military instruction or duties down in the pit. So the consequence of their actions was to do our job, and we were just doing that regularly.
No. You're like, yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, so at least that's true on an amphib. And yeah, so I was a machinist mate in the Navy. I did that for 4 years. And I got out as a E5 or for the Navy. That's going to be a petty officer, second class, or like
Okay.
a sergeant equivalent.
The
Yeah.
2 stripes, right? The 2 chevrons.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. I feel like, yeah, your whole career is like shaped you to be around extreme environments or understand them or at least have an
Yeah.
appreciation for them. Like it's kind of as much as that sucked to work in that environment, like I guess it gave you an appreciation for like safety
Yeah.
and protocol and like
Seriously.
all those things that you
Yeah.
really have to be mindful of
Yeah.
now. So
And we would actually, and you're 100% right. And we would filter out new recruits, which are just folks like, they just went through boot camp, they
Sure.
got out of a school, and they're on board
their
ship.
first.
And we're like, okay, we need to make sure this person is very serious about the consequences of their actions
Right.
in this environment.
Yep.
So we would tell them about how all the ways they could die.
Where they're like, I'm just envisioning like graphics for like a slideshow.
Yeah,
Like-
no, I mean, honestly, that'd be pretty powerful if we had like evidence of it to show them. But we didn't have that, so we
It was
would
like
just
that
tell
show
them, like,
100 Ways to Die or something.
Yeah,
There was that.
exactly.
You're like, hey, listen, this is real life, bud. Like,
And one of the things we'll talk about is invisible steam or live steam, right? So when you're working with 600 psi superheated or higher pressure steam, and you have a steam leak, and say that steam leak in a steam line is a pinhole leak, you're going to hear it, but you're not going to see it, right? Because steam typically in a typical atmosphere, you're only going to see it when it starts to condense in the atmosphere and become clouds. But in the main space, it doesn't quite happen like that. So you hear it. And you couldn't just go around looking for the steam leak with your hands. And this has happened with folks in the past because it is like a hot knife. If you were to run your fingers over that steam leak, it could chop off all your fingers. And we do have folks that we've worked with where they're missing a couple fingers. So you have to get a broom or some stick and you have to like kind of look for it.
wait, the finger
What?
or the leak?
No. Well, yeah, we're looking. No. The fingers, I mean, you could probably just go ahead and pick them up off the floor. I don't know.
Go get the finger cooler. It happened again. Oh my God.
Yeah, no, you'll use a broom or something and you'll just kind of look for it, because the thing is, when you're a machinist mate down in the pit, the thing is, we have to be really sure about the decisions we're making. We can't just shut down, right? If you're in a manufacturing setting, you can just do that, right? What's going to happen when you do that in a manufacturing setting? You're going to lose money. But on a ship, the ship could become dead in the water, which puts the entire ship at risk.
Yeah.
So we cannot just shut down. We have to try to figure out every issue on the spot. So we'll do that with new folks. And aside from hazing. So
Yeah.
hazing is the other part of it. But we'll
There
also
goes our
try
Navy
to
sponsorship. Like,
I don't know how they are today, but yeah, there's
just thin the herd a little. Like
yeah,
you
a
need to
little
be a
bit.
certain kind of tough to be down here with us. Like,
I think so.
yeah. Wow. So were you in the Navy up until you joined NASA, or was there like a?
There was a little bit in between. So I was in the Navy from 2010 to 2014. And when I got out, interestingly enough, I actually only got out because I wanted to be an officer.
Oh, okay.
Because the opportunities of going from a seaman to an officer was extremely competitive, overly complicated, overly difficult, that it would have been simpler for me to just get out and get a degree and then go back in as an officer. But then, of course, once I got out, freedom kind of was like, hey, you don't have to be yelled at all the time. You don't have to have duty days,
I can wear whatever I want.
Yeah, exactly. I can grow a beard. So that was pretty appealing to me. So it kind of I never went back in. But when I first got out, I went into being what we call in our industry a cogeneration operator. A cogeneration is a facility that generates both steam and electricity. So you're going to be working with turbines, generators, and boilers.
Okay.
And in that case, I was working at CP Kelco, and they are they can correct me. They probably won't correct me because they this is what they would want to hear. They invented xanthan gum.
Xanthan gum. Really?
Do you know what xanthan gum is?
Like I've seen it. Wait, it's an ingredient, right?
It's an ingredient in
I
a
always
lot
make
of food
fun of
products.
things. I'm like, oh yeah, xanthan gum and yellow
Yeah.
number 4, delicious natural resources that.
Yeah, it's like mostly a food thickener.
Yeah, I was gonna say like
right,
a
kind of
yeah.
help keep everything together, like prevent that stratification, right? So the stratification is going to be where you got the thick stuff floating on top and the liquid on the bottom,
Yeah.
and you got to shake up the bottle before you use it, kind of thing. So xanthan gum will alleviate that, but. I wasn't totally sure I wanted to do that forever, and I wanted to kind of explore other opportunities, especially in technology. So I ended up leaving CP Kelco, good company, to go work up here in the Bay Area at a company called Cal Lighting. And they do lighting controls. So like I programmed some of the lighting controls for the Giants Stadium. The very first job I ever did was 222 2nd Street, which is the LinkedIn headquarters. And then the very last job I did was the Salesforce Tower. And what that included was just programming lighting control systems, which are really IoT devices. They're like, just
What's IoT?
Internet of Things, taking the physical
Oh.
world and making it digital,
Okay.
right? So with the intent of collecting data to make data-driven decisions,
Okay.
right? So they were very sensor based, and the sensor is from every possible perspective imaginable, right? You're measuring the light that's coming into the building that will dim the lights, or maybe it'll drop shades, or occupancy information. It doesn't sense anybody in the space, so the lights are going to dim or they're going to turn off. Or HVAC systems are going to shut down. Of course, at that point, you're talking about building management systems, BMS integration, where you're kind of tying all these systems together to make the building function autonomously for the sake of efficiency.
Sure.
Yeah. So I did a lot of that. But then when I was working there was a part of me that I knew boilers really well.
I was going to say, how did you go from steam and like one of the most archaic, you said coal in one sentence, to like Internet of Things? Like that.
I don't even know how they accepted me as an employee.
Crazy.
It's just, I guess I was able to convey my technical aptitude and, my ability to learn things quickly.
Sure.
And they're like, okay, no problem.
And like the understanding of like systems, I feel like.
And they're like, okay, it's okay. We'll train you. We'll ramp you up. And, and I did that for a couple years. And, there was just a part of me that just really loved working with boilers and, pumps and heat exchangers and all that kind of stuff. And so I was kind of perusing jobs, and I found a job post. I don't remember where I found it. Maybe Indeed, probably Indeed, for a boiler operator job at NASA Ames as a contractor. And, as far as I'm concerned, I just see NASA. I want to get on there. I want to work for NASA,
Hell yeah. No, yeah. Every contractor I know just says they work at NASA. There's no parentheses contractor. Like
Exactly. So, I applied, and I will say that industry wide, it's very difficult to find boiler operators. So you're typically going to be looking for veterans, right? Because that's where most of the comprehensive high quality boiler training is. And I got picked up, and kind of the rest was history. I kind of moved up through the ranks until I am where I am. What was interesting when I got the job, I never thought of working for NASA, right? And even as a contractor, but I didn't know that was a possibility to work for such an agency, even as a contractor. I didn't know that was possible.
What you mean, like, as in, like, I'm not an astrophysicist. I'm not a aerospace person. Like,
and I know at least a lot of folks that I know, they would think the same thing. They just, when you say NASA, you're thinking scientist or top tier engineer. And I didn't know that there was other options. So talking about when I got the boiler operator job at NASA, when I saw the post, I saw boiler operator, and that's kind of what I was honing in on. But then it was talking about NASA, and I was like, "What the heck
Yeah, but,
does
those
NASA?
steam-powered rockets that
Yeah,
they have.
what do they do with boilers?" But lo and behold, I would eventually learn what that meant. They have boilers because they have a facility, and I'm just going to be honest, the facility sucks.
I was just going to say, because government buildings are old and janky, that's why they have boilers.
But it's not boilers in the way you're thinking.
Okay.
And the facility that I'm talking about that sucks. It literally sucks. It's a vacuum system.
Oh my God. Okay, all right.
So they're
I should have figured there'd be NASA dad jokes in this episode. Okay.
So they're using steam through a series of ventures to pump down a system to a pressure that is similar to space.
Space, sure.
Because when you're talking about a reentry environment, it's not just this high temperature, high enthalpy environment. It's the space, right? Because you're entering an atmosphere from space. So we have to pump down behind the model and pull in the stream into a system to the best of our ability. And we use boilers.
Yeah. So yeah, they have to be able to replicate as much as they can that atmosphere, because there isn't an atmosphere. There's a lack of one. So cool. Yeah. Wow. So right off the start, you were involved in blue collar work that was directly tied to STEM and to the research being done there. So like they can't, I'm sure there's like mechanical engineers and stuff that all the engineers where I work are definitely like car guys, and they have their like stuff they noodle with on the side, but I don't think anyone's like recreationally messing with boilers. So they have to bring in someone with that kind of training and background to operate that. That's crazy. That's such a like, thanks for being here. That's such a specifically like what we want to talk about in this show example. Wow. So how long did you do that specific job?
So I did that job that, I don't know, it's like, I heard this expression when I was in the Navy. It's called, like I would ask senior officers, like, how do I become you? Like, how do I become successful? And they're like, you just need to be in the right place at the right time in the right uniform. And it took me a long time to figure out what that really meant. I wouldn't even call them words of wisdom because it didn't mean anything by itself. But it was provoking wisdom through complex thought. And that when you hear the expression, being in the right place at the right time in the right uniform, for the longest time, I was like, what does that mean? Like, what do you even tell? Can you just be straight with me? Like, just tell me what I need to do.
Why must you speak in riddles?
Yeah. So really what they're saying is like, you need to create your own luck. You have to work hard. You have to meet the right people and network, and you have to be in the situations that are going to set you up for success. And the reality is whether you're in a military environment or elsewhere, the fact stands true. Yeah. You need to create your own luck. You can't just work hard but not know anybody and expect success. Yep. And that's just not going to happen, right? You have to go out and you have to meet people. You have to say, okay, how am I going to be successful in my realm? I need to work hard. Okay, that's one variable. But working hard but not knowing anybody just means you're a hard worker that nobody knows about, right?
Yeah, and conversely, like, even if you do know everyone, they're not going to just plunk riches or funding or whatever into your lap without seeing that hard work. Yeah. I learned a phrase recently that was like the universe or God or whoever you want to credit, like they're going to help you, but they need to see you at the desk working. Like they're not, whatever it is, the universe isn't going to come help you unless they you're at the desk working already on what's going on. And I think that's been pretty applicable so far with this little venture.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how did that help you jump from boiler operator to more management?
So the timing was just perfect. When I got the boiler operator job, the supervisor was on his way out in terms of retirement. So I only did the job for maybe a year and 9 months or so, something like that. And then I had the opportunity to become a supervisor. And granted, I will say that there were folks that I was working with that were more qualified to be a supervisor than me. But this is where my marketing skills had to come into play. I had to convince them, like, hey, let me become the supervisor. I'll be cool. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna be a
hard ass or
micromanager or a
anything.
hard ass or
Yeah.
nothing like that. I'm gonna be cool, but my objective is to actually move up beyond that.
Sure.
So you should know that I don't plan on becoming a supervisor and retiring as a supervisor, right?
Sure.
So there's gonna be opportunity for you to move up, and that in combination with other variables worked out for me to get the supervisory job. I got the supervisory job. I think I did that for maybe a year to 2 years. And then NASA was like, hey, we don't have a maintenance manager or a facility manager for the facilities that you operate in. And we're going to create a new position, and you should apply.
Wow.
Because it's a position that should be competed,
Sure.
right? So, but they're like, hey, you should apply for this. We're going to open this. We're going to do this.
They give you the heads up.
And you might be a good candidate.
That's awesome. So, but facilities management that's more your what I was talking about, your boilers that like heat the building and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, and the thing is about facilities management and maintenance management, and this is something that I'm trying to convey in my industry, is that there's really a lot of overlap.
Mhm.
You cannot be a facility manager, or
Right.
at least a successful one, without understanding maintenance management. Because at the end of the day, it really boils down to asset management, being able to take care of assets.
Yeah.
Right? Somebody that can just delegate work, that's just a manager.
Mhm.
Anybody could be a manager. As far as I'm concerned, you're useless.
Yeah.
So you need to have technical expertise. You need to be able to think, critically, think about troubleshooting, think about root cause analysis, failure modes and effects analysis. You need to be able to really dive into your failure modes and figuring out how to navigate and mitigate those. And that has to happen not just at the maintenance manager level, but the facility management level.
And at NASA, it has to happen at an elite level. This isn't just like no offense to people that manage office buildings, because it's still a lot to manage. But like at NASA, like there has to be a pretty precise set of protocols and
what's kind of crazy about that is when you're working for NASA, the expectation is so high and you're expected to be so technical, but you are at the end of the day a government worker.
Yeah.
So my civilian private industry counterparts are making 1.5 times, 2 times more than I am.
Yes.
Like our astronauts, right? Our astronauts for Artemis, they're on a government pay salary,
Well, and thank you for talking about this, because I think this is something that people really get confused on. I hear people talking about cushy government salaries and cushy this and I'm a government contractor as well, and I make like good money for my family for like, dang, I never thought I would be doing this kind of thing. But you're especially right near Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
So people that are in tech, people that are in the sciences in general, like they can just bebop down the road and work at Google, and literally we're talking about in the order of hundreds of thousands of dollars more a year.
Absolutely.
But because folks like you and me and the folks that, we all saw gathered in the control rooms at NASA really want to be there and to, contribute to history. And even the folks that are working in, transportation or whatever, maybe it's not the glamorous NASA job. They want to be there. They want to progress society. They want to give back, and they want to steward the taxpayer's dollar responsibly. So I thank you for bringing that up, because it's something that I think people, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I think people just miss that fact.
Absolutely. And, I think that's what makes NASA so appealing is, it's less about pay, even though I would say that their pay is reasonable, but it's more about the mission, right? And fulfillment in life, right? Like, do I want to, what do I want to do with my life, and how I,
legacy.
My legacy. And when you're working for NASA, you will have a legacy. You're contributing to the kind of innovation that's going to change the world, So, if that's what you're interested in, like, try to work for NASA.
Yeah. And any government facility like is the same way. So, um, where I work, Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, I work a lot with the guys that are hanging new drywall and they're keeping the lights on over lab benches. And, they're guys that like the kind of guys that I grew up around, like whatever. But as soon as you talk about how what they're doing today affects the science, they get serious as a heart attack. And they're like, no, we got to get this done because the scientists need to do their job. Like the mission is such that the scientists need what they need, whether that's just the lights on over the lab bench or a new refrigeration unit or, HVAC to make their office comfortable while they're processing data or whatever. Just think of all the applications. I mean, cooling supercomputers, like there's so many things that these folks that are just not often I don't want to say not celebrated, but not spotlighted. And then it's also hard in my job to get them to come to a photo shoot because they're like, "No, I don't want to do that. That's why I do this behind the scenes stuff." But no, I love them. But yeah, it's endless. The number of
Yeah.
jobs, even admins, folks that are doing the
Yeah.
office work and scheduling the
Yeah.
team lunches and
Mhm.
doing all that stuff. The science wouldn't get anywhere without these folks. So yeah. Okay, so since you like zoomed out from, one specific maintenance facility aspect in one, I guess, building to a complex to managing, like, I assume a team, what are some of the like blue collar and skilled trade jobs or roles that you interact with now at this level and like some of the scientific staff maybe that you're interacting with more now?
Sure. Yeah. So when I ended up actually getting a civil service job with NASA, I became a facility manager and a maintenance manager. Now, in this environment, we're working in a lean team environment, right? So that's why there's an opportunity where folks are wearing multiple hats or filling multiple roles. And in my case, I was both a facility manager and maintenance manager. And at that level, much more just different than what I was used to, because I was used to working with boiler operators. Now I have electricians, I have fabricators, I have arc jet technicians, which isn't something that you can even. The thing is, what's funny about the arc jet technicians is you can't have a resume to be an arc jet technician, right? Because there are no arc jets.
Yeah.
So when we hire architect technicians, we're just looking for technical people. And this is one of the things that at least folks who are looking to work at NASA and they've never gotten an ABET accredited engineering degree or any degree whatsoever, but they have technical skills, there's opportunities to work for NASA in this capacity and directly contribute to the missions that are underway, like Artemis. So I had to kind of like figure out how to communicate to all these different groups to make sure that what they're doing is mindful of the craft. I say craft, but craft is more of an umbrella term, which includes operators, mechanics, technicians, all these other groups. They're going to do their initial troubleshooting and then they're going to pass it off to engineers or scientists, which will continue that effort and kind of hone in on things. So when I say craft, just know that it is synonymous with technicians, at least as far as this context is concerned.
So I never really thought about how until this conversation, like you don't really think about craftspeople until something is going wrong. Like you're not like just out there like I'm grateful plumbers exist until your toilet is broken. And so I feel like it's probably really easy or people think about building a house and like that's so expensive and the contractor and like da, da, da. Like I do feel like it's easy to have a negative association or connotation with crafts if you only really ever think about the people that do those jobs when it's in the context of like something is broken and we need it fixed yesterday. Like,
well, exactly. When everything is just peachy, right? That means the craft are doing their job.
Yeah, and they're invisible then.
And they're really good at doing their job,
Yeah.
right? But they're invisible at the same time. It's like a double-edged sword, And when you're good at your job, from a craft perspective, you're not noticed. Yeah. But when you're bad at your job, or maybe it may not even be that you're bad at your job, it's just the constraints and the pressures that you're dealing with force you into a situation where you have to prioritize certain things, which means you have to neglect other things,
Sure.
right?
Like
So,
old buildings, and you're competing on like which system is older, and we have to take care of this
yeah,
first, and this one's getting
yeah,
replaced soon, so we need to prioritize this other thing. Yeah,
yeah.
there's a
And
lot
at
of
that point, it's less on the craft and it's more on management,
sure.
right? So when people tend to notice craft personnel, it's when there's something that's not working properly. Lighting, HVAC, whatever, and it's just, you could honestly just compare it to like Yelp, right? You probably have your favorite eateries, your favorite places to go, and if you're anything like me, you're just not gonna review them. You're just gonna be
Sure.
like, they're excellent. I'm gonna save them. I'm gonna
Yep.
bookmark them, but I'm not gonna review them because I don't have time to do that. But I like you guys,
Right.
But when you really don't like them and you want to let people know, you're gonna be more inclined to say, "Hey, this is the poor
Don't go
experience
there.
that I
This
had."
person was terrible, and this is my experience. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
so true. That's so true. That's why restaurant owners and like businesses really like harp on you for positive reviews too.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
huh, interesting. So then, with the mix of scientific staff and like the skilled trades and the technical staff, like, have you? I don't know. Like, what is it like? Do you feel like you're on National Geographic a little bit, like watching these two groups of people interact, or is there friction, or
Yeah, no, absolutely. There isn't any friction, I would say, at least from a forward-facing perspective. So you can easily go on YouTube and search up the ArcJet complex, and you're going to listen to folks that are talking through the test because there's a lot of communications going on through a thermal protection system test. Most of those folks are, in fact, craftspeople that are trained as operators that are operating the system. And then the scientists are actually more behind the scenes.
that's so cool. I feel like NASA has long been kind of, I don't know. I maybe it's just like a good example because I think skilled trades, crafts work a lot hand in hand with scientists around, different capacities, but NASA's like kind of I don't know, the like what's the word I want to use? The template? I don't know what the term is, but like we didn't get Apollo to the moon without skilled trades and,
Yeah,
blue collar work. And so I feel like NASA is one of those kind of perfect examples of like, no, this kind of work does happen all over the place. And NASA, it's so interwoven. Like there's
yeah,
not a them and us at all. There's the
yeah,
mission, like you said.
yeah, absolutely. And, this should stand true for any organization. When you have scientists, engineers, and craft or technicians, uh, you need to have a solid mission that really brings the team together, right? To rally behind the mission and make sure that things get done. And you know, exhaust the expertise of yourself in the mission to the best way possible. And then it's that combined experience that will ultimately make it successful. And that's one of the things I do love about NASA is the interface between technicians or craft and engineers and scientists is really collaborative. I mean, it's kind of shocking how humble people can be in the NASA environment and
Yeah.
how well they work together, because it's not going to be the situation where you have a scientist that says the data isn't good, and I don't like it. We need to do it again. It's going to be more like, okay, like it's not quite what I was expecting, but I understand the constraints and the pressures that the facilities are dealing with. So let's work around it,
Right.
right? Let's maybe schedule another test day. Let's do it again or whatever they got to do, right? So at least in the NASA environment, when we're talking about engineers, scientists, and technicians, it's extremely collaborative. Don't get me wrong, we do have folks that are like So the real battle actually isn't between these different levels, right? Technicians, engineers, and scientists. The real battle is actually between operations and maintenance.
Ah,
That's where the battle
yeah, I could say,
happens.
okay, yeah, I'm definitely more, I have seen more on the operation side, and there can be, not even just where I work now, but just like historically that I have observed, it seems that there's a little bit of a rub. But I think it's really important to talk about the operations people too, because again, without their work, like
Hmm.
none of the super technical stuff can happen.
Yeah.
And I also think that, with kind of the, weird place in history we are right now, I think it would go a really long way if folks that were in the kind of non-NASA, non-scientific organization, non-government roles in, I don't know, civilian world could see themselves more in
Hmm.
reflected in Artemis. Like, yeah, Artemis wouldn't have happened without the people who shine the floors or like whatever, I know that's a silly, maybe exaggerated example, but I think there, like you said, there can be a little bit more awkwardness with operations, and I'll have to get some people in operations on the horn.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, like, I'll take time periodically to give tours of our facility for other groups like legal or medical, or we actually, from a maintenance perspective, we have testing maintenance personnel, and we have what we call institutional maintenance. So institutional maintenance personnel is going to be like more facilities related, HVAC systems, groundskeeping, like streets, just the campus wide
Sure.
stuff. And then testing maintenance is going to be your operator maintainers that are operating these specialty systems that directly contribute to testing. And we'll pull in these folks from the institutional side to say, like, hey, when you're coming into our facility and you're checking our eye wash stations, you're checking our lighting or egress lighting, and you're doing whatever maintenance you're doing, this is how your work contributes to our ability to be more efficient and connect and accomplish the mission. So while it may seem indirect, it is actually directly impacting the
Right.
mission. So we want to make sure that we let them know, like, trust me, if you weren't important to the mission, you wouldn't have a job here,
Yeah.
right?
I love
So
that.
we do a lot of that. We give tours. We're like, hey, like, you come here all the time and you're checking the IWAS stations and
Yeah.
you see all this weird equipment.
Yeah.
What is it,
Yeah.
right? So we'll give tours even to our own internal staff and say, hey, this is what we do and this is how you contribute.
Yeah.
So it's really important to us to do that.
I love that. That's really cool. So speaking of like that feeling of like one big team and like everybody's involved, you had to turn me down to meet up and talk about this episode because you had a splashdown party to attend for Artemis. All I can think of is like a Super Bowl party. And everyone's gathered around the TV, and I really hope there were like moon themed snacks or something. But like you're all kind of there. Can you kind of like walk us through the feeling? Like, was there like socialization? Did everyone stop at one point and watch, or what was the vibe?
Yeah, so it was a fascinating experience because we have a combination of, so NASA Ames, we have folks that are a part of an Air National Guard. Sometimes we have FBI, we have Lockheed Martin, we have a lot of like folks that are at the center. And at the Splashdown, we had all of these different people coming together to watch this event. And it was an extremely exciting yet emotional experience to watch this because it starts off with, okay, they're in space, everybody's coking and joking and they're talking. It's loud. It's a lot of people,
Yeah.
right? People have their families there as well. You got kids, around and stuff. And then when the re-entry part starts, it
The
gets
6 minute blackout, is that what it was?
yes, the suspense starts to get real quick. So the crowd that's watching this effectively becomes silent. I mean, you're talking about a room of a bunch of strangers that are really enjoying themselves and having a good time with free pizza and maybe some alcohol. And all of a sudden, everybody's quiet, because it's on.
Yeah.
They are going through some of the most extreme environment that like any human has ever gone through. And at any moment, it could fail. So it was a super emotional experience for me because of the reentry environment, right?
Yeah,
It's like, this
that's
is
the
all
whole
arc
facility.
jets.
Yeah.
Like, if they don't make it through reentry, we failed,
Yeah.
right?
Talk about pressure.
And then when they get through the atmosphere and we know they're in the clear and that dead zone, that communication dead zone is gone, it's just ecstatic energy. You're just
Wow.
like on the verge, at least it was for me. Like, I was super happy, but then like holding back tears.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know these people,
Yeah.
but what I do contributes to their lives
Directly.
Yeah. And it's just, so I was super emotional about it. But then, of course, it's not over until it's over, right? They've gone through the atmosphere. Everybody's super excited. And it's what's funny about that is, like, you got 2 slices of pizza and you're not even taking a bite.
Yeah.
You're just hooked on it, right? And then, okay, they got through. Okay, I'm going to take a couple bites. And now the next stressful part is like making sure that the chutes come out, and if you watched it, there was one chute that wasn't totally out in the beginning and you're like, oh my gosh. And then it popped open and you're like, yeah, and everybody's super excited and, yeah, super emotional. Like, yeah, it was awesome. And then, of course, whenever they hit the water, you knew everything was good. They were safe, mission accomplished. And yeah, like, we were all just like hugging and cheering, and people were emotional. And the thing is not me specifically, I didn't have the chance to, but a lot of the folks in my facility, they got to actually meet the astronauts. So their connection to the mission was extremely strong.
Sure.
Like, hey, I got to meet the person that I have to protect in this case. So it was absolutely amazing.
You talked about little kids running around at the Splashdown party. Like, you never had NASA on your radar, but what would little Chad think about A, working at NASA, and B, working at NASA in a time where the Artemis missions are occurring?
That's such a good question because, depending on how old I was, right? Little Chad would say, I want to grow up and I want to be a ninja.
Well, yeah, as one does.
Priority. And there probably was a time when I wanted to be an astronaut, right? Like most kids.
Right.
And, as I got older, the thought or idea of working for NASA became more and more distant, in that the more information and knowledge that I gained, the more I realized that they needed much more expertise and experience than what I was able to give them. So the idea of working for NASA never crossed my mind. It wasn't even on the table. So much so that I didn't create a vision, or a plan to ever work for NASA or a similar agency of such pedigree. I just assumed that I would be somebody that they would never look for. And I was mistaken. Job opportunity popped up. I applied for it and, I got it. And, I worked for NASA as a contractor, eventually moved to civil service. But interestingly enough, when I got hired on as a civil servant, it was actually a conditional hire. They say, you have 6 years, so we're going to hire you as a technician. You have 6 years to get an ABET accredited engineering degree. Otherwise, we have to let you go. And so I was under the gun. I was like, I have a really good thing going on the contract side. But if I take this opportunity, I have to work my butt off to get a permanent job. Otherwise, they're going to let me go. And so I did exactly that. I ended up going to school for, which is
slipped your mind.
Kind of, yeah, like It's crazy to even think about it. I ended up getting a degree in nuclear engineering technology.
Wow.
I think I was already 30 by the time I started doing that.
My hope is people that are watching the show, listening to the show, might be an electrician, a welder, a machinist, somebody who is working at a private contractor,
Yeah,
or they're, building apartment buildings, or they're, working for a municipality. And they're hearing you talk. They're wondering, like, man, could I work for the sciences? Could
yeah,
I like get involved in STEM work? Do you have any
yeah.
advice for someone who's looking to like kind of cross over from like every day, like not that that's not important, but every day, trades work into a scientific, like, again, it's tricky right now to get a job with NASA just because of where things are. But, if someone wanted to jump into like aircraft mechanics or I don't know, something like
Sure,
that,
sure.
what kind of
Yeah,
advice would you
absolutely.
have?
Yeah, so absolutely 100%. You can totally get into a technical position working and supporting NASA. Uh, and, looking back, like when I got hired on as a boiler operator for NASA, I had no degree. I was a high school graduate, right? I didn't have anything. I just had technical experience that I through the Navy. And there's folks that are transmission experts, engine experts. They're working on heavy machinery. They're operators, they're maintainers. They're doing all these technical things. And the reality is NASA needs that. A huge part of the workforce is not actually scientific or engineering. It's the people that build the rockets, the people that maintain the facilities that build everything and put everything together. And a lot of these technical positions do not require a degree.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of opportunity or pathways into working for NASA without an engineering degree, or at least in the traditional sense that somebody would expect they would need to work for NASA. So my first piece of advice to anybody who has a technical background is to use your favorite search engine or your favorite AI tool and look for NASA pathways, because you can get into NASA as an intern. You can get into NASA working for a contract agency. They do things through military folks. So they have this program that's called Skill Bridge. So when military folks are like transitioning out of the service, there's like their last 6 months or so where they'll be paid by the military to do civilian work. And, so it's free of charge on the civilian side, like NASA side, but it allows folks to transition out and get exposed to the civilian sector. So there's all kinds of ways you can actually work for and support NASA.
You talked earlier on about like how it's not just hard work, you also kind of have to know people. So is it possible for folks to get a hold of you, or if they're interested in making that jump from kind of civilian trades work to more of the scientific realm?
Yeah, of course. I mean, obviously, I am on LinkedIn, Chad Cleary. Should be able to see some ArcJet content enough to kind of,
Yeah. We'll link you. It'll be
yeah,
easy to
yeah,
find.
okay, perfect. Absolutely. I'm all about connecting with the community and helping guide folks on their career aspirations.
So when you're not, managing a giant lightsaber facility or potentially mentoring someone in a career field, what are you doing with your spare? You have a little kiddo now. What are you doing,
Yeah.
in your spare time?
Yeah, so on my spare time, which is extremely limited, now that I have a little kiddo running around, which is, wow, what a blessing that is. Like the best thing that's ever happened to me is having him. And his name is Maximus.
Maximus.
Yeah, or
Aw.
Max, for sure.
Shout out.
But we all experienced COVID together. And it was during that time that I, like many people, had a lot of free time on my hands. So I actually started dabbling in the whole hot sauce industry. So I ended up starting my own hot sauce
So you went
business.
from boiler rooms to testing reentry vehicles in extreme environments to creating hot sauce. There's
Yeah,
a theme that we're like,
yeah,
I feel like hot things. Okay, so tell us about the hot sauce. This is you in your kitchen.
yeah. And trust me when I say I made a lot of crap hot sauce before I figured it out.
So does that mean too hot or not hot enough? Or
no, just
flavor?
The flavor perspective, just not good. But I have, in my opinion, perfected it such that like some of my favorite hot sauces are like Cholula, Tapatio, and maybe some of the other craft brands. And I created a hot sauce that I would grab my own hot sauce before I grab theirs. And that's how I knew
it's a big
it was
statement.
good.
Yeah. Oh, this is super exciting. We're probably going to have you back. I dream of having an actual, like a material scientist or someone that's on the other end of it here to talk with you. That's like that's the aim of the show this season. But this has been great. Thank you so much again for the support since day one and for being our guinea pig in this first on-set episode.
Of course. I mean, I've hardly looked at the camera in this whole thing. But yeah, I'm happy to be here and I'll support you however you need me to. It would be nice to have a panel with other folks to kind of talk about the interface and interactions between, the white coats versus blue collar.
So there you have it. Our first kind of on location, if you will, episode where we got to have a conversation with a guest while we're in the same room, which is pretty awesome. So we're hoping to do more of that. In fact, Rahi, my video guy, and I just went to NASA Ames to go to work with Chad this past Friday. So this is several months after we recorded the actual conversation, but we got to follow him around and take tons of video and pictures. It was actually his last day at NASA too, which is sad, but he's excited to move on to another opportunity that's going to help him grow and also hopefully help provide for that growing family of his. So yay, Chad. Sad for us, but we still got to get in on his very last day and check out behind the scenes incredible workspaces that run the actual ArcJet jet itself at NASA Ames. So if you haven't watched this episode, definitely go check that out on our YouTube. You can also check it out by joining our Patreon. You don't have to subscribe, but we are going to be releasing some extra bonus content from our visit to NASA Ames on the subscription version of the Patreon. It's only $5 a month, and that money directly goes to Rahi's gas tank. It's going to us being able to do things like taking road trips to go film on location and get more content for you guys so that you can wrap your brains around a little more at some of these crazy places that you would normally not get access to. So very excited about that. Looking forward to it, and you should be too. I love that this season kicked off with NASA and him talking about their involvement, with the Artemis II mission, making sure that the astronauts ultimately re-enter the atmosphere safely, splash down in the Pacific Ocean safely, and are in one piece. The rest of the season is going to be about the ocean. I'm going to be interviewing people that work on the ocean, around the ocean, and even under the ocean. We're going to have a lot of guests that represent the science world, but we're going to have a lot of folks that represent the skill trades. I just got a commercial diver to sign on for a interview, and I'm super excited for you all to meet her. I come from a marine science and conservation background, so it just felt right for season 2 to go back home, if you will, and get our feet wet. You might also remember from my episode in season 1 that I worked at the National Aquarium in Baltimore. So we're returning to the aquarium roots a little bit, but with a different aquarium. I got to actually sit down with not one, but 2 folks who run the life support systems at Tennessee Aquarium in Chattanooga, Tennessee. You're going to learn all about what it takes to keep all of the amazing, beautiful, and oftentimes, environmentally significant animals that we get to see on exhibit when we go to a place like the Tennessee Aquarium in Chattanooga alive, healthy, thriving. We're going to learn about what they do that involves both blue-collar skill sets and some science to keep the exhibits clear and clean, and a whole other list of environmental conditions perfect so that it looks beautiful when we go and visit. Really excited about that conversation. So I hope you're excited. I can't wait to get started. Thank you so much for being here again. Remember, if you haven't already, follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, of course, or even on LinkedIn. It's at Blue Collar White Coat Pod, all one word. And then please consider leaving us a review. Reviews are like gold for podcasts. The more reviews that we have, the more it's going to push our podcast out in front of people that haven't seen it before. If you can't do anything else, we would love to see a review from you. And if nothing else, just tell a friend. Thank you so much for your support. And yeah, I hope you're ready for a really exciting, salty, briny season 2 of Blue Collar White Coat. So until next time, keep your safety glasses on and your mind open. Blue Collar White Coat is hosted by me, Amy Weldon, executive producer. Video production and editing by Rahi Patel. Social media management and content strategy by Bridget Nelson. Visual strategy and brand support by Kira Gower. Show strategy and operations by Gina Wattis. Music, real simple, courtesy of Soundstripe. Thanks for listening.